Scientists have found tiny bits of plastic everywhere they have searched. The latest being human blood. 22 samples were collected from healthy adults. 17 had microplastics. What are they? Microplastics are plastic particles that are less than 5 millimeters in diameter. These are chippings from a larger plastic product. Half of the 17 blood samples had PET plastics. That's the type of plastic used in water bottles.
They're minuscule and they're everywhere, in the ocean, in some of our food, and now...
There's so much plastic that it can even enter our bloodstream.
That's right, so small it can exist in our veins. A study in the Netherlands analysed blood from 22 people, plastic detected in 17 of them.
Plastic? Why would you want that in you?
Microplastics will get into anything. I mean, it's the nature of the beast.
While shocking to some, to scientists,
unfortunately it's not surprising.
Microplastics have previously been detected in animal blood, in human faeces and placentas. And while the study found it in the blood of 80% of its sample group, it could be worse in New Zealand.
We could have more. We like carpet in New Zealand, and quite often now carpets are a plastic as well. Depends on whether people put things in their mouths or not. People who chew their pens, well, of course you're going to have microplastics.
We still have to understand what happens to these particles in our body. And do they travel to certain organs? Do they accumulate?
There's some information being pulled together where they've used human cell lines. There are impacts on cells. There are impacts on cells that suggest that there may be cell death. And there are also sort of markers of disease showing up in those cells.
They studied blood samples from 22 healthy adults. They found plastic particles in 17 of them. Half of them contained pieces from plastic bottles, others from food containers and plastic bags. In 2020, remember this, researchers also found microplastics in the placentas of unborn babies. And so now the question, what's the impact of all of this on us? Well, that part's still being figured out, but previous studies showed it could be damaging your cells. Makes sense. That's going to happen. It
completely makes sense.
You see, most plastic products shed plastic pellets. Synthetic clothes shed plastic. So do the tires of our cars. Plastic kettles. Even baby bottles. One study found if parents prepare baby formula in a plastic bottle, that is, by shaking the formula in hot water inside a plastic bottle, the infant might end up swallowing over 1 million microplastics per day. Plastic containers shed particles when put in a microwave. Then there are plastic pieces that are washed into rivers and the sea regularly. The fish consume them and we consume the fish. Sometimes plastic ends up in agricultural fields. From there, they make their way to our dinner plates. 50,000. That's the number of plastic particles we eat/inhale every year. We inhale sand and dust every day. Is plastic any different? Well, it is. Microplastics can latch onto the outer membranes of red blood cells and then limit their ability to transport oxygen. Nanoplastics in brain and heart have been linked to brain cancer.
You should be concerned. It should not be there. Plastic particles. It doesn't belong in your body. But at the same time, you have to understand we are exposed to so many particles and chemicals.
Meanwhile, in Brazil, the biologists have found a frightening amount of microplastics inside of marine wildlife. Our next report gets you the details.
Researchers from the Urban Sea Institute and Rio de Janeiro's Federal University have acknowledged plastic objects that end up in the ocean. Break down into smaller pieces. These smaller parts end up inside fish and other creatures. Even sea urchins extracted from what was thought to be a clean area show traces of plastic on the inside.
I was frightened. I knew I would find some microplastic, but I never thought it would be that much. The sample I showed you from the sea urchin is from a reference area that we thought to be clean. That is our cleanest spot.
According to the International Solid Waste Association, single-use plastic consumption increased during the pandemic. A 2020 study predicts the amount of plastic going into the sea every year will rise from 11 million tons to 29 million tons. Such a quantity would result in a cumulative 600 million tons swilling in the ocean by 2040. This is the equivalent weight of 3 million blue whales.